The clink came from the far end of the bar. Too clean, too sharp. The kind of sound that cuts through bodies and music, even when no one's really listening. A phone, face up, flashlight still on. A girl in a denim jacket froze with her elbow on the counter, unsure if she should pick it up or pretend it wasn't hers. Next to her, someone whispered, "No way!" Too loud to be private, too quiet to be ignored. The bartender had already turned his head. On the far couch, Taehyung's knee moved just slightly, as if to shift his angle, not attention. Jungkook was laughing at something on his own phone, head down, hat too low. Namjoon leaned on one elbow, saying something about wine texture, audible only to the woman beside him, a woman who hadn't looked up yet. It wasn't the crowd's reaction that started it. It was the delay. A second girl saw the phone screen, turned to the first, then back again. Her mouth open, not all the way. Someone said, "Yo," then bit it back. The bartender moved his hand. Not to signal, just to scratch his neck. But it was already too much. A man from the staff appeared, not security, just the late-night shift in a blazer too big, and sleeves rolled twice. He didn't say anything at first, just stood with both hands together, like he was waiting for the right moment. Jimin noticed him. Eyes met. The staff member nodded once. Quiet, low, not rude, just procedural. Jimin blinked, leaned forward, said something quick in Korean, too fast for subtitles. Jin raised an eyebrow. Hoseok turned his head. A third phone came up, not stealthily, just stupidly. The flash lit too soon, and then cut. Someone in the corner gasped. Not dramatic, startled, like a reflex. The music didn't stop, but it started to feel like background noise in a video that shouldn't exist. No one was moving toward the door yet, but no one was drinking anymore either. One of the bartenders, the one with the top knot and tattoo behind his ear, walked around the bar with a small white towel in hand, not wiping anything, just moving with it. He approached the end couch, didn't look at them directly, but angled his stance just enough for Yoongi to notice. "Gentlemen," he said, too softly for half the room to hear. "The lounge closes at midnight. We'd appreciate if you could wrap up." It wasn't a confrontation. It wasn't even firm, but it was public. The words were heard by at least 3 tables nearby. The closest woman tilted her head halfway without turning her body. Jungkook raised his eyes for the first time, just a little too slow. Hoseok chuckled once, but it came out dry. Taehyung didn't move. Someone, not from their group, laughed, quickly and alone, and tried to cover it with a sip. On the left side of the room, a chair scraped. A man stood, looked over, hesitated, sat back down. The girls at the bar were looking now. One of them raised her phone slightly, but her friend pushed her elbow down, whispering sharp. Jin stood up. Not dramatically, more like someone preparing to leave an early flight. His eyes flicked toward Namjoon. The bartender didn't say anything else. He stepped back, still holding the towel, still not wiping anything. For a moment, it felt like they might ignore it, like it could pass. But then one of the women near the piano pointed, subtle, but not subtle enough. The angle of her hand was wrong, too high, too direct. Her friend said something in French. The first woman pulled her hand back fast, like it had been slapped. The tension didn't build. It scattered. People shifted, glanced sideways, reached under tables for bags. Someone across the room mouthed something and got no response. The air was full of half movements, not one big moment, just dozens of little ones, all at once, none of them on time. A glass tipped. Not broken. Just the soft thunk of it hitting sideways on a coaster, the liquid inside catching the light. Nobody reacted like it mattered, but it did, because it was Jimin's. And he didn't pick it up. He just glanced at it, and then at the man in the blazer, who hadn't moved. That pause, not frozen, not heavy, just visibly not moving, triggered something jagged. A girl near the hallway clicked her nails against her phone, screen locked. Another girl elbowed her, whispered, "Don't." But the first one already had her camera open. "Is that really?" Too loud, too clear. Jungkook looked up like someone who knew it was over. Not danger, not scandal, just the moment control slips. His hat wasn't low enough anymore. 2 tables away, someone started laughing again. The wrong kind of laugh, short, unsure, guilty before it even finished. Yoongi stood, not fast, just enough to force the others to adjust. Chairs scraped, that sound, fabric on leather, metal on tile, multiplied. Namjoon said something to the staff member. It sounded polite. It sounded like a question. But the guy didn't answer. Behind him, the second bartender picked up a phone from under the bar and tapped it twice. Not a call, just a signal. A man in a dark vest appeared in the hallway, said nothing, stood watching. A door opened, light from the kitchen spilled out, too bright. A woman in uniform stepped forward, then back again. No one was yelling, no one was rushing. But half the room was now pretending they weren't looking, while absolutely watching every breath. And BTS, they weren't moving together. Not a single synchronized step. Just 5 different men, not in formation, in a room that had turned against its own silence. It started with Jin's hand, reaching back, just slightly, for his coat that had slipped off the edge of the lounge chair. But the fabric caught, the movement didn't land right, and the coat dragged loudly across the floor. Not loud in volume, loud in focus. It made 3 people flinch. One girl, pressed against the wall by the hallway, dropped her vape. It bounced once, rolled, and hit the base of a potted plant. She crouched quickly, like it would undo something. Her friend stayed upright, eyes locked on Taehyung, who hadn't moved, who still sat, fingers tapping against the couch arm in a pattern that wasn't music. Jimin stood now, halfway between direction and performance, chin down, eyes somewhere else entirely. Hoseok wasn't looking at anyone. He held his glass like it was part of the decor, elbow cocked, shoulders open, but not saying a word. One of the women near the piano raised her phone again, this time slower, calculated. She angled it toward the mirror behind the bar, using the reflection. Someone noticed. "Hey, don't," came from a corner. Too late. Flash. Not full brightness, just enough. The room caught it, not in volume, but in intake. A woman in her 40s, seated with a half-empty bottle of wine, and a man who hadn't spoken in 20 minutes, whispered something sharp in another language. Her voice cut diagonally across the room. Jungkook flinched, not a big motion, just his eyes, darting to where it came from. Another phone came up, this time recording video, screen dimmed, but the red circle visible if you were looking for it. And now people were looking. The bartender with the top knot leaned into the other. Words were exchanged without sound. The man in the dark vest stepped forward, not fast, not security fast, but direct. There was no announcement, no public request, just presence. The energy in the room changed, no longer a question of whether they should leave, but when and how, and in how many directions at once. Taehyung finally stood. His motion was fluid, but not confident, like someone performing composure, not having it. His eyes scanned the room once, deliberately not stopping on any single face, but people noticed. A girl 2 tables down put her hand to her mouth. Her friend beside her whispered, "Is that really him?" And the whisper carried, not because it was loud, but because everything else was suddenly quiet around it. Namjoon said something, short, flat, like a closed door. It was Korean, fast, final. He gestured once, the others moved, not in sync, not with rhythm, just motion, leaving. Phones rose again, one from near the restroom, one from a man pretending to tie a shoe. There was no outrage, no screaming fans, no crowd surge. That would have been simpler. This was worse. This was documented recognition, glitching frame by frame. Half the people were still unsure. Half were acting like they were sure. And some, the worst ones, had already started composing tweets with shaking fingers. Saw them, at the bar, past midnight. No context, just implication. The hotel staff didn't touch them, didn't guide or block or ask again, just stood still, forming a loose, quiet shape around the exit like an unspoken route had been drawn. One by one, they crossed the room. No eye contact, no words, just space folding awkwardly around them, like furniture that had never been arranged for movement. One man opened the side door before they reached it. Possibly staff, possibly just someone who wanted it over. The door creaked. The sound was brutal, too mundane, too clear. They walked through it, and behind them, the room stayed still for 3 full seconds, trying to decide what had just happened, and whether anyone was allowed to say it out loud. The door didn't close all the way. It caught on something, maybe the uneven frame, maybe air pressure, and hung open just enough to leave a crooked rectangle of hallway light bleeding into the bar. No one moved to fix it. A girl closest to the door shifted in her seat like she might get up, then didn't. The staff didn't reach for it either. Instead, they stayed exactly where they were, as if sealing it would turn the event into something real, and leaving it ajar might let everyone pretend the night had just continued. Inside the bar, voices didn't return. Conversations didn't resume. The background music, a slow instrumental that had been playing unnoticed for half an hour, now felt unbearable, like elevator music in the middle of a collapsed building. A few people started whispering, not about what had just happened, but around it. They just left? Did someone tell them to? Was that really all of them? Nobody used names yet, not out loud. But a woman near the bar scrolled furiously on her phone, then froze, then turned her screen toward her friend. One blurry photo, one flashlit frame, one profile, recognizable only if you already knew what you were looking for. Her friend gasped, then stifled it with a hand. Across the room, a man in his 50s, not part of any group, drinking alone, looked up and said nothing. Just shook his head once, like he had seen something he couldn't unsee. And yet, no one left. That was the strangest part. No one left. They stayed. Like the room had locked itself in shared paralysis, and exiting would mean stepping into responsibility for the scene. Phones buzzed, but quietly. Screens flicked on. One girl in a gold jacket typed out a message, hovered, then backspaced all of it. People started talking, but only to people they'd come with, and only in half sentences. Someone mimicked the way Taehyung had stood. It got a laugh, but the laugh didn't stick. A moment later, someone else said, "Don't," and the group went quiet again. One of the bartenders finally turned his back to the room and started restocking the glasses, louder than necessary. Ice clattered into the metal well. Bottles shifted. The mirror behind him reflected half the room, including the still open door. The hallway light made everything else look dimmer by comparison, like the bar had lost color. A woman near the entrance asked if the bar was still open. The staff said yes. She didn't order anything. The man in the vest had disappeared. So had the second bartender. But the one with the top knot remained, towel still over his shoulder, eyes fixed now on nothing. And then, the moment everyone had been dreading arrived. The wrong person came in. A young guy, maybe mid-20s, not dressed for the bar, phone already out, breathless like he'd run from upstairs. "Is it true?" he said, to no one. Then louder, "Were they here?" No one answered, not even the staff. He stood in the middle of the room, spinning in a half circle, filming the emptiness, the couches, the drinks left half finished. "They were here, right?" he said again. And this time, someone laughed, but not with him. At him, soft, nervous, the kind of laugh people use when they want something to go away. The boy's smile faltered. "Too late," he muttered, mostly to himself. Then he turned the camera on his own face, lifted his eyebrows, and whispered, "Midnight bar? They were told to leave. It happened." He paused. Then, grinning too wide, "Posting soon." That was it. The lock broke, chairs scraped, bags were grabbed. A group near the back stood all at once. The girl in the gold jacket cursed under her breath. Phones lit up, notifications now coming in clusters. The woman near the bar was crying, not from emotion, from shame, maybe, or secondhand horror. Her friend was comforting her while still refreshing Twitter. The bartender dropped a glass. No one flinched. A man laughed bitterly, said, "Well, they shouldn't have been here anyway." And immediately people turned to look. Not because he was wrong, but because now it was happening. Not the event. The after, the rewrites, the takes, the pixelated clips. The 6-second sound bites with subtitles and fake outrage. The damage wasn't what happened in the room. It was what would be done with it outside. And the worst part? No one could agree if anything had actually happened. Just 5 men sitting past midnight. Just a quiet request. Just eyes. Just phones. Just an open door that still hadn't been closed. But something had shifted, and it would not unshift. The girl with the blurry photo posted it. 3 words. No tag, no context. Just, "Yeah, that happened." The post got 10 likes in under a minute. The bartender finally walked over and closed the door. It clicked. The sound was nothing, but it landed like a slap.